I'm Kate.
I'm Sonya.
And I'm Beverly.
And today we're dishing with you from Hill Country Barbecue, located at 410 7th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C., part of that Penn Quarter yummy area of
You know,
Washington.
this is a great place to come for barbecue. We've got it in front of us, but it's also a great place to come for live entertainment, and that entertainment is you and you, because they do live band karaoke on Wednesdays. I know, I've participated. Don't come on Wednesdays if you don't want me to sing.
I think it sounds like fun, but even more fun, the food here in front of us. We've got the cool as a cucumber salad, and we have the PTL potato salad. Any guesses for what PTL means?
Praise the Lord!
Because you will be thanking Jesus after you eat it. It's so good. And then what do we have here? Chicken and brisket and pork ribs.
Can't go wrong with some pork ribs.
That's right, Hill Country Barbecue. And today we are dishing with Katherine Martinez. She is one half of the duo at LPM, and they do a variety of things, but one of them is restyling vintage clothing. Yeah, that's an interesting job to have kind of come up with. I know people love vintage shopping, and I know people like to kind of refashion clothes, but how did you decide, like, I'm going to make a career out of vintage shopping, basically?
That's a really great question, and a lot of people ask me, and they're like a little confused about it at first, but I guess it comes from a variety of places. When I was little, my grandma used to visit from Colombia every couple of years, and when she would come for those few months, it was like we were just sewing all the time, and I used to love to go and get scraps of fabric from the fabric store, like the leftover scraps, and we'd make new clothes out of them. So for us, it was more exciting to make new things out of old. And then my babysitter used to always take me thrifting with her when we were little, before, you know, it was cool to go thrifting and cool to look for vintage. And I loved all the little things I used to find, all the little dresses. And as I got older, I knew that I wanted to open a boutique, but I wanted to do something special, something that was a little different. And I thought, you know, there's so many vintage boutiques out there, but, you know, it's one thing to just say, hey, here's a dress from the 70s and restyle it. It's another to say, hey, here's a dress from the 70s, we're going to make it shorter, we're going to make it up to date, and we're going to make it more modern.
So you're sort of using the fabric and repurposing it.
Yes.
Wow. So everything you have in your store is a one of a kind.
Yeah, I mean, we still do sell vintage, because some people like those long, like 70s maxi dresses or a nice, you know, 80s blazer, but we also do things that are more up to date. You know, we look for a lot of inspiration online on popular websites, and we see what's selling, and we use vintage pieces to recreate that, because a lot of those are taken from vintage.
I was just going to ask, what inspires you to, and how do you come up with the new vision that kind of still keeps the essence of the vintageness, but is totally something different?
I guess, you know, just from what we see online, you know, Ashley and I are bloggers, so we see a lot of inspiration from other bloggers around the world. So when we see them wearing something that's maybe a high-end designer piece, or, you know, from a popular online store, we say, hey, we can do that, and we can make it totally unique. It's not mass-produced. So we were really inspired a lot by street style and bloggers as well.
I would imagine one of the challenges would be, you're trying to sell this, but you can't really mass produce it. You only have one. So your sizing, you really have to find the right person to fit in that one thing that you have that is that size. How in the world do you go about doing that, and how have you used, I want to talk about this program Etsy, because a lot of people aren't familiar with it. You think they are in your business, but a lot of people aren't. So how are you using Etsy to help you sell those one-of-a-kind pieces?
I guess one thing that we do is when we see a certain style, like for example, what I'm wearing, you can't see because I'm sitting down, but it's what we call a fishtail skirt, high in the front, long in the back. So we'll find many skirts, they might not be the same print, they might not be the same size, but we'll do that same cut to all of them. And then on Etsy, you can post measurements, and we're very clear with our measurements, you know, hip, length, so people will know based on the measurements what size they are. And we have a pretty good gauge of what size it is, and we also put
Do you do any custom work?
Yes.
Do people call and say, I want that certain look, but I don't have the fabric? How does that work? How can you commission a piece?
So for right now, and it's exciting, we're actually going to be moving to a showroom location. Right now, I literally work from home, from my parents' house, and people will come over. My room is set up as a showroom, and they might bring a piece with them that they want redone, or if we have some pieces that haven't been repurposed, they'll say, hey, I love this, I want it, you know, this short, or I want to take the sleeves off, so they can do that there.
And they're literally shopping out of your closet right now, kind of.
For what I'm wearing, yeah. It's great. Ashley and I like to say that we have a rotating closet. You know, I don't mind if I wear something once and somebody else has it. You know, it's fine.
But now, how expensive is it? Because people hear custom or vintage, made to fit them, and they think, oh my gosh, that's going to be really expensive. Talk about how you price things.
I mean, I guess we price based. The one advantage is that we are not in, a high-end retail store for right now, because we're online. We're able to cut costs a lot that way, and it really depends on who we're doing it for. If it's maybe somebody who's a little like heavier set, or if it's it depends on the size of the cut that's going to be made.
Do you ever think about going on something like Project Runway? I think like 5-8 years ago, none of us really thought that we could be designers, and now we're all using terms like, oh, it's bias cut. Like, do you think that maybe you could parlay this into a design line?
Maybe. I mean, what they do on Project Runway, I am so in awe, and I'm not going to pretend to be, the next, Tommy Hilfiger, or, Karl Lagerfeld or anything like that. I think one of our goals is to make, because there are people who redesign vintage and make these incredible confections, and I love that. That's great. But I think what we like is making things that are, making simple changes, but making it available to masses. So making it so the price isn't too high, so it's very accessible.
More ready to wear.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, vintage is kind of having its moment right now. I would say, never before has it really been as popular to go back, and we've always kind of had trends reemerge.
Recessionista thing.
Exactly. So what is the plan moving forward? Are you guys thinking about maybe creating your own line from scratch, or are you just gonna power through and vintage is it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely it is kind of a trend right now. It's kind of funny. The other day I was out hunting for vintage, and I used to be the only one in some of these stores. People look like, who's this girl? Like, she doesn't belong here. And now, it's very common to see other girls dressed very nicely, maybe, or women after work that go to the thrift store or go looking for vintage, and we'll look at each other like, oh, I know what you're doing. And, so yeah, we've thought about, starting our own line, and then also eventually carrying modern basics that are, from brands that we really relate to, that are really well made. Maybe they're not made in China, they're made in other places, but well made and timeless.
And so how do you know if you're getting a good vintage find? What are some tips you could offer?
And if it's real, how do you know if it's real?
Yeah.
Well, one easy way to tell, we usually find pieces, obviously, that are made in the United States, and it's kind of sad. If it says made in the USA, that probably means it's vintage, because things have not been made in the United States for a while. There's also usually a little tag on the inside that will say Union Made, and every time I see that I get excited, because it's like a piece of history. So if it's made in the United States, if it's Union Made, and a lot of times based on the types of fabrics, if it's 70s, it's a lot of polyester, some of those like polyester pants.
What age is considered vintage? This is going to break my heart, I have a feeling.
Technically, through the Wall Street Journal, they say that it's 20 years or older. So everyone got really
vintage.
20 years. So 1992 was vintage?
Well, it sounds like there's lots of wonderful things on your website that we need to check out, and maybe have you style us and see if we can look good for our old age. But thank you so much for being with us. We've learned a lot about you and how we're aging. Anyway.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to check you out on Etsy. Thanks for being with us. And as always, thank you for being with us. Follow us on Facebook. Be our followers on Twitter as well, and tell us who you think we should be dishing with. We'll see you next time.